Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. My name is Oscar, and I work in the developer relations team here at Snap. I'm joining from Paris in live, so please put in the comment also where you're coming from. Looking forward to see many countries. Today we will talk about custom components, and I have with me the incredible engineer Len Deuel. So Len, please introduce yourself first and tell us about the project.
Yeah, hi, I'm Len. I'm a software engineer working on the Lens engine and Lens Studio. I'm going to be talking about custom components today, which are a way to improve your workflow, kind of reuse your scripts, and hopefully create more powerful lenses.
Awesome. So yeah, we're just as a reminder, this is part of the Lensathon we're running right now on DevPost with $200,000 of prizes. There's 30 winners that we will announce, and you can register and submit until the 31st of January. So we'll put the link in the comment, and also in the description is a video, so you can make sure to check it out. So yeah, Len, it's your time. Looking forward to hear from you.
Cool. All right, let's get into it. Yeah, so what we're going to cover today is what are custom components. I think people have seen them with ones we distributed in the asset library just recently in the 4.34 version of Lens Studio. We allowed everyone to start creating them as well. So we'll talk a little bit about what they are, about how to use them in your project, about how to share them in different ways and keep storage and keep access to them, how to create one, and then we'll go through a demo, creating one and using it in a few different ways. And ask questions anytime. We can happily jump in and answer those as we go.
Yes, please do. I'll be monitoring the questions while Len is presenting because he's going to be very busy, and I'll ask your questions. So please feel free to ask anytime.
Cool. Yeah, so what are custom components? So they are a bundle of scripts and assets. So it takes your JavaScript and combines with it any necessary assets for that, whether those are textures or meshes or things like modules that you have dependencies on. For instance, in the screenshot, this Bitmoji custom component would have a dependency on things like the Bitmoji module and the remote media module. And then custom components can be shared and installed to Lens Studio. So once you install a custom component to your Lens Studio, then you have it in every project that you open, and you can just quickly add it to that project as well. And that means that they are reusable from one project to the next. That's one of the main reasons to create your own, is to kind of share it with yourself from one project to the next and keep it updated and working. And then they can also be created and accessed at runtime. So a lot of an ordinary script in Lens Studio, you pretty much just set it up in the editor and configure it. You might instantiate a prefab, but custom components are a lot more flexible with how you work with them dynamically while the lens is running. So there are a few different ways to get them into your project and use them. Once they're installed, you can use that component add new menu, just like you would add any built-in component, like the mesh visual or the text component. If you've got them installed, you'll see this custom components library section of the add new menu, and you can pick any of your installed ones. Then you can also create them dynamically. There's a code snippet kind of demonstrating that on screen. So you just have to get access to that type and create it. And we'll go through both of these cases in the demo here in a few minutes. And then there's also a few different ways to store them and share them. So one of the main ways that we share them with all of you all is by publishing them in the asset library. So there's a great set of custom components in that custom component section of the asset library. These are different ML effects like babyface. There are like helpful utilities like the screen transform manipulate or this image carousel, and we just recently published a lot of useful UI custom components as well. So you can add a button or a color picker, add layout components so you can make lists of things, and then powerful tracking custom components too, like wrist tracking and ear binding. So these are all published into that custom component section of the asset library. And then for ones that you create yourself, there's kind of two different ways to track them. You have a default location. So when you newly create a custom component, it's going to go into that default location. But one other really powerful Way to share them is this installed library. So this is in your preferences section of Len Studio. It snuck in a couple versions ago. You may not have noticed it. But with this option, you can select any folder on your computer and set it as an installed library. And Len Studio will consider every custom component, so every .lsc file in that folder, as installed to your Len Studio. And so it'll show up in places like that Add New menu. Why this is so powerful is you can take, a folder of these, and it can be backed by Dropbox or Google Drive or by your own Git repository, and you can manage kind of how you keep what's in that yourself. But Len Studio will consider everything in there installed. So you can send someone a link, they can download the folder off Google Drive, plug it in as an installed library, and bam, they have access to all of those custom components. Yeah, so if you're going to start creating them and sharing them and reusing them, how do we start with that? So the first step for creating a custom component is always a script. What you're going to create your initial custom component by converting a script into a custom component. So you would right-click on that script and select that create a custom component option. That'll replace the script in your current project with that custom component instead. And for custom components that you're editing and working on yourself, in a lot of ways they behave just like scripts in your Len Studio. In that public folder, there's still going to be a JavaScript file that you can edit in external editors and manage in source control in exactly the same way. But when you go to export it, you can choose whether it's editable or locked for people that you share it with. So if it's editable, they'll also basically see it as a script file that has some extra things connected to it when it gets imported. But if it's locked, then it's just kind of a black box that they can use like they would use a component that Snap publishes. And then you can also configure your custom component with default values, which is one of the more powerful capabilities there. So if you see this inspector for this script on the right, now there's a bunch of new fields where you can set up default values so that every time you go and use that custom component in a project, you get those same values. All right, well, I went through that quickly, but we'll go through all of it again during the demo. And what we're going to be creating is a reusable image randomizer component. So we're actually going to start from a script that's already been published in a template that just randomizes between a bunch of different images. But I'll show how we can make it a little more powerful, keep track of it in our different library, and make a few different projects with it. So like I said, we're going to start with a template, the simple canvas template, just because I know it has this a version of the script that we're looking for already in it. Any second now.
Yeah, we don't have yet any questions. If you have any question, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We're here to help, and this is an opportunity for you to ask questions to the people, to the engineers behind these great features. So please feel free to ask. We're almost there. Suspense. We'll get there. We'll get there. I keep seeing people joining the chat. We have about 20 people now on the stream. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. I see a lot of hi in the chat. Yeah, this is part of the life of the live stream struggles, like it's the reality of the technology. It's up, it's opening, it's working now. Okay, great. It just takes some longer time sometime than we would like.
Yeah, it's live because we didn't edit out the load time.
It's a proof that it's live.
Yeah, so this is the script we're going to be starting with. It's from this canvas template, and when I click on it, it just randomizes between a few different characters. So I know that this script is down in here. It's just called image randomizer. So we want this to be a custom component. So we're going to start by just doing that. Create a custom component. And now we have this. So not too much changed. It's still a script. I can open it and edit it. But I can also see my inputs and default values here. And then crucially, it means it's in my library. So if I go into my library, I set this as the default library before the stream, and you can see that this LSC file has been registered to my library, and now I have access to it in every project that I open.
Sorry, quick question, Len. Quick question we get, Len, from Elsa. She was asking which template we used, because I think you opened it pretty quickly. So I was not sure actually if it's a template that is already in Len Studio available right now, or is it another one that you picked up?
Yeah, so this is the simple canvas template. It should be in Len Studio right now, and we're just starting from this one script in the simple canvas template as a starting point.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to open a new project. And let's try using our new custom component. So I'm going to add just an empty screen transform. And I'm going to add my randomizer. So we get some errors initially, and that's because a few different things aren't set up here. It doesn't actually have the image to reference, and we haven't filled in these textures yet. So one thing you often want to do with a custom component is make it a little more pre-bundled, right? So this script that we took from the template is expecting an input of an image. That means every time I went to use this custom component, I would need to create one in the scene separately. But instead, we can just kind of have the custom component do it itself. So I'm going to delete this input line, and I'm going to go down to this init function, and I'm just going to create or use that component if it's already there. So first, we'll try getting it. I'll actually assign it to the same variable it was using before. So we're going to first try getting the image. And then if there wasn't one there already, so we still are null after trying to get it, then we will create an image component. And this pattern of checking if it's there already and trying to use that one, or else creating your own, is helpful for custom components because it lets you move some of the customization to different places. So say there is a project where I want to do something special with the image and not just kind of create a default empty one, then I'd be able to just create it in the GUI and then add my custom component on top of that. But in the common case where I'm just going to create a normal image, I can just do it right here with this create component line. Now, some of you may know whenever you create a visual at runtime, it won't have its material. So we're going to need to set that material onto it. So we'll take an input of the material. And we'll assign it. All right, so now we have an image with no material because I haven't set it yet. So we'll get the default image material. And I liked that question mark texture that was in the template. So I actually grabbed that ahead of time. We'll just pull that into this project and set that as the default texture. So now if I go to my custom component and I set that image map property. So if I grab the right thing, set that image map property. Now I get my question mark. But I don't necessarily want to have to do this in every project where I use my custom component. And that's where we get to those default inputs. So if instead of going to the individual instance of the custom component that's in the scene, I actually just go straight to the custom component itself, I can actually just set the material there as well. And now it'll be part of that custom component so that every project I bring it into will automatically include this material and this texture. And I don't have to worry about configuring that part every time. That question mark's also a little bit distorted, so let's set the stretch mode here. Cool. And since we're basically just trying to set up the previous example, I'm also going to bring in those characters that we were using. So we just want to kind of make sure everything still works in a new project that doesn't have everything that template had. And our touching doesn't work because that was part of that other template. So we're kind of trying to make this more self-contained and working. So we're going to also, in exactly the same way we created an image component here, we're going to create or get an interaction component. We're just doing all this on the scene object that the component was put on, so that when I use this, I just know there's the one scene object in the scene tree. And then we can subscribe to the on-tap event for this interaction component. Or on-touch start, rather. On-touch. I know that if we look up here, the function for triggering this is randomize start. So we're going to just call randomize start when touch happens. So now I have my randomizing carousel. One powerful thing with custom components compared to other scripts is that they actually preview in the scene tree. So you can see here my image and looks like this loaded with the default material. It would ordinarily load with the question mark material, but even though there's no visual here, there's no image there yet, I can still kind of control this in the 2D scene like there was one already, because it's a custom component and it's running this script even here in the scene view. This is really important for ones like those button custom components that I mentioned, or the layout ones, because you can see their effect in your 2D or 3D view. See their image down there, and kind of create your project in the editor like you'd expect, even though so much of this is happening in script. Yeah, try to make this window maybe a little bit smaller. We can do that bigger. Cool. So I've made a bunch of improvements to this custom component. I made it so that it creates the image dynamically. I've bundled a material with it, and I have created an interaction component dynamically. So now I want to add all those improvements back to my library. And to do that, you can right click and you can push the update to the library. So now if I look in my Finder window here, you can see these were just modified a moment ago. And so now any new project I go into and add this custom component, it's going to have all those improvements that I just made. So let's quickly try that out. And I'll save this component off, this project off, so we can share it as well.
By the way, Len, no pressure, but we currently have 46 viewers in real time across the world. So you have quite an audience right now. And anyone, feel free to drop in the countries you're from in the chat. Great to see so many faces, so many people joining in.
Yeah, that's great. I'm for listening. Glad to hear wherever else is tuning in from.
It keeps growing. I don't know what's going on right now. It's we're up to 50, almost like it's going up to 50, and I think we'll soon be at 60. So a lot of attention right now on what you're showing. Anyway, great to see you, everyone.
Let's quickly get out of full screen so I can add my characters to this project, because that's the one part we haven't bundled yet into the custom component. So we tried it with a screen an overlay before. Let's try it with a face overlay. So let's add a face image. We know that we don't actually need this image because we'll create it automatically. And I can go right here to this, and my image randomizer's there, like I would add any other component. So I can add that. And I can fill in the characters. And there, it's immediately working. And so I've applied that same script and that same capability in a kind of different way, using different tracking, without having to set it all up again. If we go into that scene view, we can look at it overlaid on the face, and we can decide kind of where that needs to be or how big it should be. All right, let's try one more while we're at it. So I'm going to create another new project. Once again, going to just drop my characters in. You could just bundle these images with the custom component as well. I'm imagining that in, all of this is a little bit of a toy usage, but I'm imagining you might want to vary what images are randomizing in actual usage of this custom component. So this time, let's try doing some hand tracking. So we'll do some 3D hand tracking. We don't need this object. Oh, looks like I got 2D hand tracking. There we go. So we're going to add our randomizer down here. And we need to configure where it's tracked. So we're going to track, one is just kind of in the middle of the hand. So we're going to track this object to mid 0. And then because this is 2D content that we're using with 3D tracking, we're going to use a look at component in order to make it sure it's always looking at the camera. So quickly configure this to look the right direction. Yeah, so it should be there. It's very small, so let's try making it a little bit bigger. All right, and maybe position it a little bit nicer as well. Just kind of raise it up so it's on my palm. Cool. Let's get those images set once again. And now we have the randomizer in another context. So I'm going to save this project because we're actually going to come back to it here in a moment. And then I'm just going to keep going with our flurry of new projects. But this time I'm going to show something a little bit different. We're going to try creating the custom component dynamically. So instead of just setting it up in the inspector, like we've been doing, we'll add another script that'll be responsible for creating more and more of these things. So let's create another new project. All right, we'll call this one Miser on touch. So in this script, we're going to, every time I touch the screen, we're going to leave one of these image randomizers behind so that we can just have a bunch of them. So I'm going to use a special kind of input for this. It's at type name. And what this is telling the studio is to create a field where where I can pick a custom component, and then I'll be able to refer to that type like it's a built-in component afterwards. So I create this randomizer type. Like I said, we're going to try to react on touch, so I need to create a touch event. So let's create a touch start event and bind to it. So here we're going to, I think we'll do this with a screen transform again. So I'm going to create an empty screen transform. We're going to put our script here. And now I can go into this randomizer field and I can pick, this is already looking straight to my library. It knows that I don't even need to have it in this project. So we'll find that image randomizer right on top and connect it here. And so then we're going to want to create our instance of the randomizer as child objects below this screen transform. So the first thing we need to do is create a new object. We're going to need to make sure it's in the right layer. We're going to try to be rendering these things with the orthographic camera, and by default, new scene objects are just in layer 0. So we're just going to copy the layer from where this script is. So copy the layer. Then we need to create some things on that new object. So we need to create a screen transform component. And then of course we want to create our randomizer component. So we're going to still use that same create component call like I used for the screen transform, but instead of naming it, we're going to pass that randomizer input that I made. So we do script.randomizer, and that's going to refer to this custom component. All right, now we need to make sure this is in the right place. We're going to want to try to configure the anchors of this screen transform, and we're going to want to do it based on the touch position. So there's some helpful helper functions on the screen transform. So let's get our own screen transform first. And we'll be able to go to the anchors here and set their center position to be wherever that touch happened. So to do that, we can use the parent one, and we can do screen point to local point to understand where that screen position was relative to our parent. And then we want to set the size as well. so that it's not the entire screen. And like an eighth of the screen sounds good for this. So in these coordinates, the screen is 2 by 2 always, because it's just relative. So here we'll do 0.25, 0.25, and make it an eighth of the screen. Okay, so now I have created my touch event. We need to actually set this to be parented correctly. So let's set the parent as well. So yeah, so every time I touch, I leave behind one of these question marks, but they're not actually randomizing. And that's because normally we've been filling in this textures property in the inspector. But actually, with any input property, works just as well in the inspector as it does if you're trying to assign it from script. So we can go in here, we can do ran.textures, which was the name of this property, and assign it from our script. So to do that, we'll need to get some textures. So we'll take them as input on this layer instead. And we'll copy them over. And then we also want to trigger that randomize start function. This is assigning that function, making it part of the public API, this custom component, by assigning it to script. So script.randomize start. So we can invoke that function from over here as well. So we can do rand.randomize start. We need to actually fill our textures here. I'm going to divert from the characters for a bit. We'll use a bunch of emojis instead. Just a little more fun. All right. So every time I'm clicking, it's just jumping straight to 1. And I actually did some debugging ahead of time, so I know what's going on here. But it's kind of an example of some things you have to be careful of when, if you set up a script to use in one project, you kind of know exactly how it's going to be used. You set up a script to be a custom component. When you go to use it some other way, for instance, every time before this it had been used once in the inspector. Now we're creating them dynamically and assigning the properties. Some of your assumptions may change. The script that we took from the template was actually making a small assumption that this length never change. And so we need to get rid of that. And so it understands that the textures assigned may change at any moment. So there's 2 places that was used when trying to randomize the function. All right, so now it's actually randomizing, but we've run into another bad assumption, which is all of these are kind of randomizing together because we're just using the same material on all of them. I'm sure some of you have had run into this in Len Studio. If you are always referring to the same material, it's always going to have the same textures. But that's a really easy fix, and something you often want to do when working with custom components is just to clone that material instead. So now we get them all separate. So say this is too many and we want to kind of clean them up as we go. We could have our randomizer kind of track how many there are and delete them after. afterwards. So we say we only want ever 5 faces on the screen at once. So let's create an array to track them. We will push that rand, and then we'll say that if there's more than 5 of them, delete the oldest one. So to do that, we can go to create it at 0 and call destroy. And then we can move it out of the array. Not quite working. And this is because of another kind of assumption you often have to clean up with custom components, which is that when we go to destroy our randomizer component, we still aren't destroying the image component and the interaction component that we created here, because they're separate things. And so to be kind of a good citizen as a custom component, you should really clean up anything that you created whenever you're destroyed yourself, so that you're not leaving garbage behind. And there's actually a module a script module that we published to the asset library to make this a little bit easier to track. So I'm going to pull that instead of the asset library. I just have it here in my folder, and we're just going to add that. So this is called the destruction helper. So we're going to bring in the destruction helper. You'll see the dependency was detected on that module, so that it's now part of the custom component package. If I go to export this custom component, that module will come with it because Len Studio knows about the dependency. So let's do the way this module works is it exports a class, this destruction helper prototype. And so we actually need to create an instance of it. And to that instance, if we look at what the constructor asks for, it wants the input script. So we'll create a new destruction helper and pass to it our script object. And what this is letting it do is it can now track this script component and react when it's destroyed. And so now if we create things like scene objects and components through that helper, they will be cleaned up automatically. So if we replace our old create component call with one through our helper, so destruction, and thankfully for us, Len Studio is able to fill the autocomplete from one module to our script, so we can do this create component. And we're going to create the image like before, and it needs to know what object to create it on, since we're not calling a function on the object. So we'll pass get scene object. So similar lines, but now we're doing it through this destruction helper, so it'll get cleaned up automatically. And we'll do the same thing for our interaction component, just to, like I say, be a good citizen as this custom component. Sure, I didn't make any typos here. We'll just copy and paste it. All right, let's try this again. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the old one goes away. All right. Cool. So once again, we've made several improvements to the custom component. We've fixed an issue with that in variable. We have fixed an issue with needing to clone the material, and we have fixed an issue with destruction, not actually cleaning it up. And so because we found a new usage, we made these fixes, we've improved the script, we want to push that updated version back to the library. So if I go here, I can push that up to the library. That'll bring the destruction helper with it, along with all of our changes here. Well, now we have an older project that used a worse version of the custom component. So let's go back to it and clean that up. So I'm going to save this project so we can share it with all of you. Cool. So let's open that project we were just working with a second ago, the hand tracking one. All right, and now we want to bring in those we just made this project as well. So if I go, look at my image randomizer, there's a little update telling me that I can actually update and get a better version of this custom component. So I'll go here, click the update. It'll quickly apply that update. You see we're now using version 2.0 of the custom component. And we got our destruction helper dependency added. And if we open this script, you'll see those improvements that we made are still here. We have our clone call. And so now this project, which is still working just the way it was a second ago, has our updated version of the custom component. All right, well, let's take advantage of some of these improvements. So we made it a little bit easier to work with from script using in our last project. So let's do some of that here. So right now I'm having to kind of use two hands, one to hold up and track and another one to reach over and touch this thing to start the randomizer. But it'd be nicer if I could use a gesture. If it on, open, I got a new randomization. So let's set that up. We're just some kind of quick and dirty, just using both kinds of hand tracking here to get really easy gesture tracking. But there's better ways to do this if you want to use just 3D tracking. But we're going to, I know some easy APIs on the 2D tracking for hands to get gestures. So let's create another script. This will be randomize on gesture. And we're going to, we'll just put this at the root of the scene, actually, scene object. Okay, so what does this script need to do to be able to do what we want it to do, which is audify our randomizer whenever we make a gesture? Well, it needs the randomizer, and I can't just do, at input randomizer immediately, because Studio doesn't know about that. But that's where that type name input comes back in. So once again, I can declare this randomizer type, and then I can do an input of randomizer rand. So now if I go to my script here, it wants me to fill, it doesn't know what that type is yet, but if I fill in image randomizer, now it knows what that type is, and it will let me pick the image randomizer that's in the scene. So this is great. Now I can make function calls like that randomize start one to my randomizer. I'm going to need the object tracking as well. So let's do input of object tracking. And then we'll do that gesture listening. So we'll just do register descriptor start for an open hand. And when that happens, we will enable the randomizer. And we will call randomize start. And then when it's over, I close my hand basically, so it is no longer open. We can disable it. Okay. So we're going to need to set our object tracking 2D, which knows about these gestures. And I missed my script dots here. Okay, so it's randomizing every time I open my hand, but my on disable on enable aren't working. That's actually basically the same issue that we had with destruction a moment ago. So let's go fix it. In here, our image is not disabling when our randomizer does, but we have events for that. We can create an event for onEnable. And we can create an event for onDisable. And disable these things that we've created. So .image.enabled. In the onEnable, we want to turn it on. And the same thing for our interaction. And then the onDisable, we want to turn it off. So now when I close my hand, it goes away. When I open my hand, it comes back. Cool. And then once again, we made a little improvement. So we can push that update to the library. And any projects that had been using this would be able to go update and get version 3.0 of the custom component, now with improved onEnable, onDisable handling. And I think this is really what makes custom components so powerful. You can kind of find these small issues and improvements, the scripts that you use frequently in different projects, and just keep keeping them up to date. Every time you go back to a project, you can take that script to the newest version. And that can include things like materials too. If you update a material that's inside of a custom component, you can push that update to the library and pull that update into your other project and get that improved version of the material, or different textures, or what else, anything else that gets bundled with that custom component bundle. Yeah, so that's kind of all the demos I had. I promised to leave about 10 minutes for questions, so hopefully all of you have some interesting ones to ask.
Thank you, Len. Thanks a lot. So we actually currently, people are saying they're very excited about it. They thank you a lot for all of this thing. I don't have currently a question from them. Please, anyone, if you have a question, feel free to drop them in the chat. Urban Peppermint, I have a feeling you'll have some great questions, so feel free to do so. Same for Maha. Same for everyone that is here. Feel free to drop us a question. I see a lot of familiar names. Let's see. At least we can tell a lot of enthusiasm from the messages we are receiving. I hope this is giving, while we're waiting for the questions, I hope this is giving everyone great inspiration for the Lensathon. As a reminder, if you're joining or you just watched the end of this workshop, this is part of the Lensathon that we're organizing with $200,000 of prizes and 30 winners. We put the link in the chat, and we have put in the description. So feel free to use any of the ideas, any of the learning of today using custom components in your projects that you'll submit. So very exciting. Actually, we noticed we have already over 2,700 participants. This is way beyond our expectation. We're very excited. We're very happy to see everyone enthusiasm. So thanks for joining so far. If we don't see any question, we may call it an end earlier than expected. I'm just giving a little bit more seconds to see if anyone is having any question.
Sure. And yeah, there's a lot of ways you can kind of apply this workflow to your Lensathon. If you can imagine scripts from other projects that you want to bring into your Lensathon project, you can make them custom components first. You can go through a flurry of projects the way I just did, and imagine how you can kind of rapidly prototype different things by bringing in your custom components. Or maybe you've already made that submission to the Lensathon, but you can imagine some of the scripting that you did for your Lensathon project would be useful in the future. So you can go back to that project, turn those scripts into custom components, and use them in future lenses.
Absolutely. We have someone that just said they made a CPR lens. So I'm very curious to see for the Lensaton. So I'm very curious to see what it would look like. We'll see this when we're reviewing the application. Great. I mean, I think there's no question. So thank you. Here we go. Just one Urban Peppermint. Thank you for asking your question. My question was how to get the lens. Let me read it first. My question was how to get the lens function by hand or face trigger. A lens is already on topic. Couldn't be any more thankful. Thank you both. Does it make sense to use this question, Len? My question was how to get the lens function by hand or face trigger.
The lens function. So you mean like when I've called a function like this? We're just kind of looking at the script itself to see what it was naming that function. So here, whenever you see the kind of script dot assignments, that means that those functions are becoming part of the API or the public functions of this script, and so we can hopefully see them at the top. If you really wanted to adopt best practices, maybe you're going to share these custom components more broadly. You could use things like JSDoc to mark up your functions and give documentation for them.
Awesome, thank you. There's a bit of delay between our recording and the question, so she might get back to us in a second. Meanwhile, we have a question from Slum asking if this live will be on the channel. Yes, it will be on the channel for replay, so you can watch it anytime. And I think that's it. So thank you very much, Len. I think it's been a pleasure. I think it's been very, very useful to everyone from the messages we've seen, and this will be on replay, so everyone will be able to use that. And yeah, is there any last words you want to say, Len, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, no, just thank you for everyone for watching, and hopefully this was helpful.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.